Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Roadmap to Writing. I'm author Jennifer Jenkins, and today's episode is how to braid action, dialogue, and description in your writing. Buckle up and let's take a drive. If we were to try and pull a semi-truck using this rope, it would likely snap. Okay? I mean, that's a lot of force, right? Science tells us that if we braid this one rope, then actually the strength of the rope is not just 3 times stronger, it's exponentially stronger. And it's important in writing, there is a point to this, it's important in writing that we take the time to braid action, dialogue, and description into each of our scenes. So often it's hard to diagnose the problem with narration. We don't identify it. We know that something's wrong. It's not reading very fast. It feels choppy. The reader is having a hard time staying interested and invested in the story. If you can learn to braid action, dialogue, and description, it will solve so many of your problems. So let's talk about action. Braiding action into a story. Well, first of all, if we only had action in a scene, let's say we have a full 2 pages of writing that is all action. Well, the disadvantage to that is that we lose the element of character. When you add dialogue to a scene, we're not just talking about external dialogue or the words spoken by the characters, but also internal dialogue by the narrator. Let's use an example of an avalanche. An avalanche is rolling down this mountainside. Our character is going to get caught. They run as fast as they can, but if we're only showing the action of them running, of them falling, of the snow catching up on them, gaining on them, then we're losing the fundamental element of character. We really want to hear the internal dialogue of the character as the action is happening. So we'll have the action, but if you include, the character's thought, their internal dialogue, like who's going to provide for my family if I get buried alive? I don't want to die. These types of thoughts that in the midst of the action add such a deeper meaning and relevance to the action. It makes the story matter. So action alone is not very strong. Now, dialogue, as awesome as dialogue, internal and external dialogue is, it alone is not very strong also. Now, every now and then in a story, you'll see a sequence of dialogue, and it's back to back to back where a question is asked and a response is provided, and there's no dialogue tags or anything like that. That's okay every now and then, but very rarely. Typically, the reader wants to see the reaction of the other characters in the conversation. So if something is said, in other words, body language usually will tell or show the reader exactly how their message is being received. If you don't include action and description with dialogue, then the reader is going to feel blindfolded. Imagine professing your love to somebody and they're right across from you, but you're blindfolded. And so you're finally saying the words that you've always wanted to say. I've loved you my whole life. And you can't see their reaction. That would be maddening, because if they're nodding their heads and they're crying tears of joy, then that's probably a good sign that your statement is being received well. But if they're kind of backing away and getting nervous, that shows how the love profession is being received. So adding description and action with your dialogue adds another fundamental layer that strengthens the dialogue itself so that it means more. We call this context also. Description. If you only use description, and in old literature you saw it a lot more often, where there would be paragraph after paragraph describing a morning sunrise, and we'd see details about, you know, the veins of the leaves and the light, how it filters through the clouds, and the mewing of cows, and the way that the daisies floated on the wind. All of those details are not bad. They're not bad details. But if you take a full scene just talking about, just describing the setting or describing the look of a character even, without infusing some action and dialogue, be it external or internal dialogue, in with that description, it gets boring. And your reader, you'll find, will start to skim, or they'll lose interest. So they need a character connection, and they need action. So if we use those details like the veins of the leaves and the light and all of the wind, all of those other elements, those are great, but let's weave them into the story. Let's add that extra four-dimensional layer into your story, but in the midst of action and dialogue. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Roadmap to Writing. I'm author Jennifer Jenkins. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it. Also, subscribe to my channel so you don't miss future episodes on how to write a book. Good luck.